Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Sound perfect. Clicker. Good stuff. Thanks for having me. I liked the Walt Disney quote because we strongly believe that what we do at King is about people. And I'm not talking specific about here's how you find tech people. It's about how you engage with them throughout the process, and the longer term thing about making sure that your values fit and you're hiring the right people. And it's not just about can they do the job tech-wise, it's about do they fit with your company. So if you saw the website, you would have seen this. I'm Gary Manning. I look after the advertising recruitment at King, so that's us putting advertising into our games. This is quite new. They're not the annoying pop-ups. These are ones there you watch a little video only if you want to and you get rewarded for it. And that's the picture they use, and I thought I'd explain what that was and who that little guy is there. So this is my family, wife, Harry, Noah, and me at my local pub. And this was done by, see there, Paul Tinker, one of our artists in London. So this was the title I was given last week. So I hope I'll do you proud, Tash. It's about cultural fit when hiring into technical teams. And there are a couple of things specifically that you wanted to answer. The things that I really want to focus on are kind of assessing for the right mix and the people that you don't want to hire. And I've got a really simple way of doing that, and I'll show you kind of how we do it, and I think you can take it away. So I'll just tell you a bit about King, in case you don't know who we are, apart from just that annoying app Candy Crush that sends you invites to play. I'm talking through kind of our process at King, which might be very similar to yours, might be completely different. How our values work, how they're important to us, how we make decisions, how you might want to do this, and then a couple of things that we've learned and things that we think this works well for us. I'll be honest, this slide might be a little bit old. I assume we're still probably one of the kind of leading companies in the App Store right now. I tried to check last night, but App Store on iOS 11 is quite different, and it was difficult to try and find top grossing. But typically, Candy is still number 1 or number 2 in the UK, and the other games you'll still find floating around. We're now part of Activision Blizzard, so we call it the kind of the Activision Blizzard King family. So we're part of the guys that made Call of Duty and Hearthstone and all these kind of great games. And for example, Overwatch, in case if those of you don't know, great online game, and there's now a league for Overwatch. So they've got professional teams, mainly in the US, a couple around the world. So one of the guys I think owns Arsenal has bought rights to the league. This is how I guess King started. We started about 14 years ago. And we were trying to get our games through the platform on Yahoo, and that kind of changed things. One of the things that we did was we put our games on Facebook, and they said, no, Facebook's dead, you shouldn't do that. So we did, and it started working out really well, and we launched Bubble Witch Saga, which you can still get in the App Store, and it suddenly just took off. The thing that really made a difference, though, was going into mobile. So there's the previous slide, that little grey bit down there. I don't know if you've seen me talk before, you might have seen this, so sorry, but that gives you an idea of just how massive mobile can be. And mobile is kind of overtaking desktop now, and it's gone huge. So in terms of how big King is, I joined in about 2013, and it was just after at the end of the year, we'd hired 350 people, and we roughly increased by about 400 per year, and that's from people just buying boosters and gold bars and stuff in their game. I predict we'll probably be around 2,200 this year. We're slowing down, but we're kind of meeting the kind of the company size that we need to be for the games that we're turning out. And the reason that's important is because when you're hiring people, you want to make sure you get the right kind of people, and it probably puts into context like how we've done the process and why we've done it, and trying to get the right kind of people. And we wouldn't retain the right kind of people, I don't think, if we'd not followed the process that we do. That's roughly how many users we have. I suspect actually that's probably changed a little bit, and LinkedIn's overtaken us, and Twitter's a bit bigger right now, but it gives you an idea of kind of how many monthly active users we have. Like, we'll never be as big as Facebook, for example, but it's pretty, I think it's quite impressive. Our mix of hires, I think the majority is direct. We have a really good referral scheme. We have a lot of people referring us, and that's a really important source for us. And internal hires is actually going up now. If you think back to a couple of years ago, there's a mass of people who've been here 2, 3, 4 years. They're looking for something new, and internal hires is really important for us. But it's on the way in that I think is really important. And my next slide will tell you about the process of how we do that. These are types of hires that we make, lots of tech. I previously covered all of the corporate stuff, in marketing and finance, and we have the studios, like the creative people that actually make the games and draw the cats and the dogs. The guy who did my family picture, he created those cats and dogs. That's why I met him in the pub. I said, what do you do for a living? And he said, I draw cats and dogs. I was like, okay. So this is our process. It's fairly standard, I think, for most, but the bits that are different for us that we added in were the kind of the three in the middle, which, do I have there we go, these three here. So after we've had our kickoff, we quite often do an interview briefing with the managers so that everyone's aligned and they know exactly what we're looking for. And we tell them this is what you're going to focus on, whether you're going to focus on a values interview or a kind of technical side of the interview. We have a health check, so that's the recruiter owning the process, saying, how are we doing? Are we getting on? Are we on track? Are we off track? And a wash-up. And I'll go into the wash-up in a second, but the kind of two things that I think are really important for us are like the wash-up and the interviews. And the reason those kind of circles look pretty scrappy is because when I was doing this, I was trying to draw them on my laptop on an EasyJet flight the other day, all cramped up. And it's not very easy when you're going through turbulence trying to draw smart circles. That's why they look a little bit rubbish. So, generally, at King, the majority of people go through 6 interviews. There's 3 technical and 3 values. And the reason that's important is we both want to know that, yes, you can do the job, and also you fit with the King values. And these are our values. There are 5. There was a 6th one coming, which is passion and performance. Is one we had before, and we switched them round, and we do tweak them as we feel is right and at the right time for the company. And behind each one of these, we list behaviours that we would associate with these. I think people always find fun and friendly a kind of an interesting one, because how do you define whether someone's fun? But it's about having a fun tone of voice when you're emailing people. It's about being friendly and about being supportive to your colleagues. So all of these, we think, defines a Kingster, as we call them, someone who works at King. So the wash-up process, why are wash-ups important? We put wash-ups in place because we found that the interview feedback was great, but it might miss out people. So it's about avoiding false positives and false negatives. I've been to wash-ups where a colleague of mine, Matt, almost didn't get hired because someone said, yeah, I really like him, I think he fits the values. I wasn't quite sure if he can hire tech people, but someone in the room said, well, he was a referral, he was brilliant in his last company. It's like, okay, that's fine, I changed my mind. Now, had we just gone with the feedback that was in JobVite back then, we probably would have said no. An example yesterday, we had a wash-up. Everyone loved this candidate. He's amazing, he's done really great work, until the final interviewer said, I don't think he's actually done experience of the modelling and the predictive stuff that we need for the finance team. And so someone piped up and said, actually, no, we talked about that, we covered it. In which case, his kind of, I'm a bit neutral on this, turned into a, okay, that's fine, I think we should hire. And it makes a big difference. Conversely, it goes the other way. You might end up doing yourself out of a hire, and that's okay, because that's the right thing to do. So you don't want to hire someone if actually it's not the right thing to do. So people in those wash-ups will talk about the balance between whether we think they're a good values fit or whether they're a good technical fit. And technical be, we're hiring from that tech function, or it could be a recruiter, and the technical side is, can they do the job? So this is our talent matrix, and you can steal this. I think you're getting the slides afterwards.
Yeah.
I'll take out some of the stats and stuff, but this is the important stuff. And it looks nicely coloured in. I didn't draw it, but you can draw this on a board in your wash-ups. If you say, right, we're going to do a wash-up, and you get your interviews in a room, you can draw this on a board. I normally do. I draw it on a board, just a box, and I explain to people how it works. And it is really simple, and we teach this in the interview training. So what we say is you have, okay, capability going this way, and values and beliefs. And we've got 3 candidates here, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to move them into one of these boxes. It's a bit like pin the tail on the donkey, which I sometimes explain to someone in Barcelona, and they're like, what's this thing about a donkey? I'm like, okay, forget that. But they do understand when you start putting them in there. So we say, where are we going to drop these people? And I'll give you an example where we've dropped these 3 candidates. It's fairly obvious that box 3 here, kind of low on technical ability and low on fitting our values. Box 1's interesting because actually this person we think will be a great King cultural fit. And that's what we mean by values, is do they fit the culture? And for years and years, and before I got to King and honestly really kind of understood what it meant, someone to say, oh, they're not a great cultural fit. Well, what does that mean? And actually, people come from different backgrounds, and so you're probably biased unconsciously towards someone that you think you get on really well with, but actually, they need to be able to do the job, and they need to be a good cultural fit. So this person we think was a great cultural fit, but not strong enough yet. They're not far off, but they're not as strong as, say, 3. And 3's a shoo-in because this person is great. They're high on capability and high on value. So person 1, actually, that should be your talent pool, because if you're thinking about a developer who can do X, Y, and Z, and you want them to do a bit more, then actually you should keep hold of that person. You should stay in touch. You should be in your talent pool, because they're only going to go this way. It'd be unlikely that their values would go backwards, and they, instead of being humble and open, they become arrogant and closed off and not fun and friendly, and whatever your values might be. So keep those as your talent pool. We're going to hire number 3, that's fairly obvious. Number 1's also important, because candidate number 1 is potentially these things, and they're damaging, because you could have someone in the business who, yes, they know what they're doing, they could run a project, but the kind of trail of destruction and mess that they leave behind is really damaging. They might not care about the company, they might steal your IP, they might just railroad everything, and then people start leaving. So that's dangerous. And I've been somewhere before, and I remember this person, I remember her name, and she was a great program leader. She had project managers working for her, she delivered on time, but I was always hiring for her because people hated her, and she just didn't respect anyone, and it was just a bad team environment. So we're saying we're going to hire person 3, and this is what we do in our meetings with on our wash-ups with our managers. So how can you do something like this? I realise I've spent 4 years at King, and in those 4 years we've done things like we've created kind of strong process for like the kick-off, the interview briefings, the wash-ups, and the values, etc. So how can you do something like this? So if you don't have your values and behaviours, define them. Quick hands up, everyone hands up. So, and keep your hand up if you have company values. Good. Keep your hand up if you think that everyone knows what the company values are. And then keep your hand up if you think the hiring managers that are responsible for your hiring and are ambassadors for your hiring really know what the values are. Keep your hands up if you use your values as part of your interview process. See, we've kind of lost maybe half, I don't know. And I've been at places where we had values, and they're on the wall. You can put your hands down now. We had values on the wall, and I always had this image in my head of some guy climbing a mountain, and it's like reaching your peak or whatever. And I never knew what they were, and I never understood them. Our values are very strong. We talk about them a lot. It's part of what our employer brand team did a few years ago. Those kind of nice coloured badges, they're in every office. You find them on T-shirts and mugs, and we talk about them, and the CEO talks about them when he relates things to this game. We're not going to release it. We need to fail fast. It's okay. You should be humble, and you should be open enough to say, look, we didn't kind of launch this game. We had a retrospective 2 weeks ago on the CEO call, which is everyone in the company comes together, and someone presented on why we cancelled a game, and it helps instill that culture of it's okay to fail, and we tell people about it, and we're open enough. And it's just another kind of reminder of how we live these values. So if you don't have values, you create some. If you have values already, do you have a definition behind them? And if you do, and you do have a definition, so have some adjectives that say you should be inspiring or should be collaborative, you can take those and you can write specific interview questions. So we have interview sheets put together. So an interview goes, you can almost not read a CV and just turn up to an interview 2 minutes before with your value sheet and read out questions and just assess on those values. So if you don't have them, I think it's a good idea that you can interview against values and behaviours. If you haven't done wash-ups, try them. I think don't get the whole company to try and do them. Try them with a small group. What I found was when we were putting them in place, people were resistant to it. And they were resistant because they said, I've already put my feedback in the system, and everyone said hi, so why are we talking? You're like, well, okay, fair enough. But if someone said no, you're going to say no to everything. But actually, you could turn that around. It's not about turning it around so you can fill another job and move on. your job is to hire the right person, not just fill jobs. So try them. I remember in the early days, I went to a wash-up for an HR business partner, and while we were waiting for the hiring manager to turn up, people couldn't help themselves but start talking about it. They want to share, and once they've done a couple, they start asking me, like, when's the wash-up? I want to put my view across, but I also want to hear what everyone else said, because it's interesting to kind of compare, and people like it because it gives them a bit of self-assurance that they made the right decision. It's always interesting when people completely disagree, but that's your job there to kind of chair this meeting. Interview or recruitment training, I think, is really useful. We do interview training. We talk about our values. We talk about the best way to interview and how to probe. We talk about unconscious bias as well. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. Ours is about 2 to 3 hours. I've got better at it, so it's closer to 2 hours than 3 hours. Even if it's a basic one-on-one and you tell them about your process and you help talk to them about your values. And as you go on, make it part of your kind of recruiting DNA. This is what we do. We believe in our values, and our values are important, and that's why we do it. And good luck. And it might not be easy, but I think you'll really find some value in it. Ours is now that kind of step before. It's part of our hiring DNA, and because so many people came through it in those kind of growth phase over the last 4 years, they just know this is the process. So they don't question it. I appreciate, and I would find it more difficult if I was going somewhere and they don't have this in place, trying to suddenly turn everyone around. So I appreciate it might be difficult. So I was trying to think, I can stand up there and tell you all this, but actually what difference does it make? Does it actually affect anything? And some of it's mainly anecdotal, but I know that it does create an amazing place. So I took some of the more fun pictures of people that I know and people here that I've hired and have gone on to do more things, and David here, he's been promoted, and 2 of the girls there with Santa started as paralegals and now trained to be lawyers, and they're here because they like the culture, and we see our values interviews as kind of like a barrier or a gate to we call it the kingdom. It's a bit cheesy, but like it's your gate into working into King. And if you get those filters right and you find the right people, it's a lot more harmonious, and people have a great time. It can actually be really good for diversity as well. The wash-ups, I think, will help you. If you look back, and this is the example legal were helping me kind of understand. If, for example, everyone says yes to 2 candidates, 1 male, 1 female, and you hire the male, for example, the woman might say, actually, you said that I should be hired, but why not? And if you can't try and differentiate it, the wash-up will help you, especially if there's a values difference as well. I think it helps as well because we set what our values are, we share common values, we weed out people that we don't want to work in King. So I think it does help. I think you'll find your own ways of making it work. And the other thing is that our offer to accept ratio is really high. Now there are a lot of factors there. We're lucky that we have great offices and we have great people, but we have great people because we've hired great people, and it's important to us. So it's something like 5% turn down the offer, and it's people join not always for money. I don't think we're the best payers in the market. You know, in the US, we will lose out to Facebook and Google and Snap, who are giving away huge amounts of equity. But the offer to accept ratio is really good, and you can see people are happy. There was a guy who's one of our business performance directors. I remember having a drink in an office party kind of years ago, and he was saying, I don't know what the point is of these values, they're just a waste of time. If I interview and I think they're good, we should just hire them. And actually back then I found it difficult to articulate why I think it was so important to have values. And then I went to a MBA presentation we did at London Business School, and they asked me to go along to talk about some of the strategy roles that we had in case anyone was qualified rather than a grad. And he stood up on stage and he said, we hire against values, and it's really important that we hire against these values because it helps X, Y, Z. I'm like, I mean, you've changed your tune. So I think it does make a difference and people get it. Thank you very much.